John, keep dancing for the folks that are
I was going to ask him
watching
to
us.
stop. He's making me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had lunch yet, and I am getting a little nauseous from watching it, but I think it'll be good fodder for our followers.
I was looking for good fodder, so thank you.
Oh, man. Hey, guys.
Hey. John, introduce our guest. John, you set this one up, and I'm excited to have just met Julie and get more into it. We can carry on the conversation we had off air, maybe.
Well, hey, guys, this is
Probably
this is
not.
Guys, he just asked me to do something. You're already interrupting me. What's up,
John,
guys?
introduce yourself. Forget it. Josh, let me go first. I'm going to introduce myself. Then John can go and he can introduce Julie. Ready, set, go. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Kristi Faltorusso. I am the Chief Customer Officer at Client Success. We are a customer success management solution, helping our customers manage from new to renew. I've spent the past 12 years in customer success, building, scaling, and transforming customer success teams, and thrilled to chat with our guest, Julie, today.
Nailed it. And my name is Jon
Johnson.
Johnson. I am the Principal Customer Success Manager at User Testing. We are a UX UI insights platform helping the leading brands build products that their customers actually use. I've been in customer success for 12 and a half years now. And I had the honor
really? So you had to take the half over me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, but you're far better at everything than I am. So titles matter too. So I'm still sitting in the swamp over here. I'm thrilled to bring on a dear friend of mine, Julie Raeder. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but just a little bit about what we're doing here today. We're going to bring kind of a conversation around what customer success was before somebody joined the industry and kind of what it looks like after a little bit of time into it. So, Julie, why don't you give us a quick little, it's not going to be as dialed as Kristi's intro, but who are you? What are you doing here?
Yeah. Jon Johnson, thanks so much for having me. You're awesome. So I'm Julie Raeder. I am a customer success manager at Dooly. I've been there for a year and a half. It's my first customer success job in SaaS. I came from the education industry and transitioned into tech. So I spent 6 years in education, teaching special education, and then utilized those skills in customer success today. So it's been a good ride so far, learning about customer success, and I'm excited to chat about it today.
Yeah, how did you,
Julie? When you're not CSMing, tell us about all of your fitness endeavors. Didn't you just finish your first triathlon?
Yeah, I did. A sprint
amazing.
triathlon.
A sprint. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but listen, you know how many people haven't done a sprint? Josh can't even spell triathlon.
No, is it with a Y or an I?
Doesn't matter. So, Julie, tell us about your experience.
Yeah. Okay, so I did a triathlon in June. Yeah, it was super awesome. It was like 500 meters of swim, 16-mile bike, and 3K run. 5K run.
5K
so that's
run,
3 miles. Yeah. So yeah, it was awesome. I think I could probably push myself a little bit more, but yeah, it was great. I got third in my age group. I was surprised about that. So, yeah, it was in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Super cool views.
There it is.
But yeah, that was one of my goals this year, to just complete one. So yeah, I know you're in fitness, Kristi.
Well, that's why I want to hear about your fitness journey, because I'd rather this be a podcast about fitness, but unfortunately we have to talk about customer success.
Yeah, no.
I've gained 10 pounds this summer. Does that count?
Is it muscle or?
Nope.
Nope.
It's in facial hair.
I just signed up for Orange Theory.
Nice.
So yeah, so I have my first
Really?
Orange Theory class. I did. Yeah. My first class is on Wednesday.
When is your first class?
On Wednesday.
He just said that. He just said that.
That was
I
amazing.
also have a delayed version of John. Okay, so why don't you just hush up there, Josh?
Is this where it's like as you listen to your customers, Kristi? So I'd like to renew
because they have better Wi-Fi than you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to do circuit training up before I moved to North Carolina. I was 3 times a week. I was really in the habit of it, and it's been like a year and a half, and I've been coaching my son's soccer team, and those little idiots are just winding me. Like I am out of breath halfway through the game, and it's just really, really kind of encouraged me to spend a little bit more time on my health. So not just my customers' health, but my physical health. So, and there's an Orange Theory like 2 blocks away from my house right now. So, oh, look at you.
Yeah, didn't you get an award?
Yeah, look at you, Kristi.
Didn't you get an award, Kristi?
I get awards all the time. I crush things at Orange Theory. I'm like, right now we're in the middle of marathon month and I'm in first place for females. So I'm pretty impressed.
I think I'm intimidated solely because I know you and you go to Orange Theory. And if I walk in and they're all Kristi Faltorussos, I'm going to have it's going to be an interesting experience.
They're not.
I am proud of you all. Julie, tell us about customer success at Dooly.
No. First, before we get into that.
We have to start with Julie. Wait, hold on. But you decided a while back, to transition out of education.
Here we go. This is it.
And found customer success. Let's start there. How did you even hear about customer success?
That's a good question. So I got on LinkedIn because I knew that I had to get a job and get a LinkedIn. So I got on LinkedIn and started just doing my thing on there. And then, I just met a ton of people in the CS space. And I actually met this group of people, and one of the girls in there was looking at customer success. That's kind of where I got introduced to it. And then I kind of, at one point, just decided I'm going to go for customer success. This seems like something that I would like, and some skills I have that could transfer over. And then that's kind of where I began my networking journey, and just met a ton of people in CS, and one of them being Jon Johnson, and him essentially being my mentor. And then, met you too, Kristi. You helped me a lot, and then just a ton of other people. And that helped me really just understand it at a base level. So.
Well, and since this is a part of CS Insider, Julie was also the winner of our first giveaway over a year and a half ago when we did the raffle. Yeah, you won all those books, and remember, that's how you and I started converting. Oh, apparently it was more important to me.
I didn't know that it was a win. I just thought that you got me books.
Yeah. But so, kind of to the point, one of the things that we've been really interested in, we've been talking a lot about kind of our opinions and thoughts on customer success. Kristi and I have been in this industry for a long time. Josh has kind of been in the fringes. Obviously, he's got experience knowing people in the industry, but we don't let him talk as much. One of the things that I'm really interested in is this kind of the difference between what you thought coming into your first job versus what your experience has been. You and I have talked a lot over the last year and a half over DMs and chats and Zoom calls and all that kind of stuff about God, I thought X was going to be different. I'd love to have a little bit of that discussion and kind of focus in on maybe what you thought it was, what you thought the ideal outcome was. And then obviously, we're not looking for any, salacious details here, but kind of what your experience is, not just with your Kristi, not just with your job at Dooly, but also the industry at large. What are some of the things that you wish maybe were different, or that you thought would have been different, or disappointed or excited about?
Just start with what you thought it was. Let's just start there. He asked 4 questions in one question, John. You like to do that. Julie,
we can multitask.
Before you landed your first job in customer success, what did you think was going to happen when you started? What did you expect? What did the role look like in your imagination?
I kind of came into a different role than a CSM. I came in more of a content type role, because I was doing a webinar and then also managing some accounts that were smaller. So it was more of a one-to-many approach. But then I quickly kind of became a high touch customer success manager with just the ever changing flow of the business. But I'll say this, when I got on LinkedIn and was learning about all of it, you kind of get this ideal state, right? Of what it's going to be like. And you also think you have an idea of what it's going to look like. You can be strategic and all these things. And then you also think that it's going to be similar in all businesses, right? Which is funny to think when you say it out loud, but obviously it's not. And then I think too, you read things in these courses that I take, and you're kind of expecting things to be that way, and then it's not, right? Those are just ideal states, or an example. And I remember one conversation we had, Kristi, about that, and you're just use that as a little bit of a guide, right? It's going to be different for each customer. You're going to have to change your own things. And so I think one of the biggest things for me that was really a surprise is I assumed, and this is just me not having background experience, right? But like I assumed a lot of people would know what customer success is, like internally, and then also like in like other businesses as well. And I think that is the biggest thing that I ran into a challenge because right, I'm just coming into a company for the first time, and I have to like make sure that I'm setting the right expectations around what customer success is, but like I'm still kind of figuring out what it is, and what it means at our business. And then and then slowly over time you realize, you're constantly advocating for what customer success is so that you're allocating your time in the right places. And yeah, that's really challenging, especially when you don't have like background experience on like what it is. You're kind of figuring it out as you go.
I'd love to know, Julie, like what have you taken from your time in education? What have you applied towards being successful in customer success?
I think one of the biggest things is when I taught in education, specifically special education, I always had to be thinking about like the student and like what I'm teaching, and specifically like different learning styles that I'm teaching to. And you're always thinking about the other person, and that's something that I can take into CS,
Yeah.
that I've taken into CS. I'm always thinking about the customer. Okay, like what email am I sending? Okay, is this going to bring value? Like, is this meeting like something that we actually need to have, or can it be done async? Like things like that, and really keeping the customer in the forefront. And I think that's something I try to bring to like all meetings, even internally, because everyone should be doing that at the business, right? Like even in product, even in marketing, like sales, like the customer should be at the forefront of every decision. So that's one thing that I've taken away from education that I've applied. So
Empathy. You're empathetic.
mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think we talked a little bit about this too. Is that I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts around. You spend a lot of time with lesson plans versus success plans, and kind of the marrying of those two things, right? It's more than from what I'm hearing, it's more than just empathy. It's actually you have had to individualize what you learn. Like I need to solve for X, right? This is our outcome is this, and then especially in special ed when you're working with just a broad number of kind of different things, like all kinds of different things, from personalities to emotionals to the physical space itself. Like you have to have a different plan of attack to try to reach some sort of standard outcome, right? And that's like what we do, right? So we have to look at those nuances and the factors that kind of play into what are inhibitors to success, or what are challenges, or what are obstacles.
Mhm.
What's been your experience with kind of looking at taking that lens? And I know it takes a while to kind of get into this space, so it's a year and a half in. Are you seeing kind of similar successes with that experience?
Yeah, I think there's two different pieces that have applied to kind of like thinking about the different needs. And then I also want to talk about like customer journey and how that applies. And I think we had a conversation about that previously, so I want to talk about that. But so like I have customers in a lot of different like countries and different, yeah, so like that applies, right? Like where are they from, where are they coming from, like culture wise and all that. I think that applies. But then also obviously different industries, we're working with different businesses, but I also think it applies to like talking to different personas that you have to talk to, and like what they care about, and always keeping that at the forefront too. Like when you have a meeting, like who are you talking to, VP of sales or rev ops, or are you talking to an end user? Like that all applies too. But I also think, and so like differentiating piece really hit me the other day with like a customer journey that you're following for or that you've laid out, I guess, for customers. And really hit me the other day that like, for example, if I was teaching two kids with reading disabilities, but one had a reading disability in comprehension, but one had a reading disability in decoding, I wouldn't like put them on the same plan, right? Because they have two different needs. Just like I wouldn't put a customer on the same customer journey if they have two different needs, right?
Mm.
So you have to like tailor the journey to what the customer needs and like what their goals are and their use cases. So that's definitely something like I'm still learning and figuring out, but I'm starting to realize like, yeah, not everyone's just going to fit in like this box of like a journey and like have this quarterly call here. And, so yeah, that's something I would love Kristi to talk about, honestly.
Kristi.
No, you wouldn't. This isn't about me, Julie. This is about you. Stop trying to use this as a learning session. I know
Julie,
you have very Julie messaged me with some very specific question, and I was supposed to get back to her, and I said I couldn't type because it was like late and I was in the middle of something. I was like, I will record a response because it was too lengthy of something for me to type, and I forgot to do it. So she's probably using this as an opportunity to get an answer to the question she had. But
no, it's funny because
I will get you that response. But I'd actually be interested in hearing. So, like, you've landed your job from education to tech. Those are two very different worlds. What are you loving and what are you not enjoying as much? Give me some pros and cons of like tech versus education, because I've got a ton of friends that are teachers and I've got a ton of friends that are in tech. Both, I think that there's pros and cons for both. I think everyone can equally talk about things that they love, things that they don't. You've actually been in both worlds, and I'd love to hear kind of your comparison of the two.
Wait, can I just take a guess? Can I guess that it's like free lunches versus pension?
Guess her answer because you're leading the witness.
If I were in her shoes, I would say free lunches versus having a pension. Go on, Julie.
Can you stop? Nobody even goes to the office anymore, Josh. Julie, tell us about your experiences in education and now tech.
Yeah. I would say overall, I'm like really, really glad that I made the decision. Obviously, there's benefits to both. I think I miss working with kids for sure. I think that's one thing I miss. I think that I just kind of have like a knack with kids, and I think they're curious and fun, and like they just ask the craziest questions. And like I worked with like kindergartners and first graders and second graders, so I do miss that. I wouldn't say adults are like worse or anything, but I just think that it's just a little more it's just a little more fun, you know. I would say one thing, managing schedule, like being able to have more flexibility is like one thing that I'm really, really happy about. I also think how businesses run is just a really important skill and like to learn and understand. And like, that's how our like society runs, you know, like, so I'm glad that I have that perspective. Like I didn't have that in education. And so I really like that part of it. And I also think it's just really interesting learning about all these different businesses and meeting a ton of different people. I would never have been like outside of my box this much if I would have been still in education. I'm really glad that I had the experience though, because I just learned so much about learning or working with kids with different disabilities. I think it fostered like a lot of skills in me, patience. Like I use a ton of that in customer success. Like, you know, a customer is upset, they're super hostile on a message or something. Like it's not going to frazzle me too much because I've dealt with scenarios where like a kid has completely like went off inside of a room, like he had a behavioral challenge. So it's like I can utilize a lot of those skills from education into tech. So I think one thing though, remotely, I love the flexibility of it, but I do think that I miss the in-person connection. It would be cool if I had like a hybrid scenario. But yeah.
Yeah. What do you hate about tech? Like, what's the bullshit? Give me that bullshit. I can just read the text messages. Do you want me to just read the text messages?
Oh, come on.
I opt for John to read the text messages. I want the unfiltered response.
I don't know. Like nothing's really coming straight to mind right now, but I mean,
tech is weird. Like this is weird. Like what we do is weird, right?
A little bit. What do you mean by that though? Just because like it's on the internet or what?
I mean, we sit at our... This is not the strangest way to make money on the internet, let me tell you. No, we sit in our little desks with our little laptops and we talk about trying to get other people to click other buttons in software. Like, I mean, it's just, it's the strange... Like, if you explained what we do to someone 100 years ago, or even 100 years from now, like it is... If you really think about what our goals and our tasks are on a daily basis, especially if we're remote and working from home, like it's kind of chaotic. It's kind of chaotic.
I think one of the most like challenging / frustrating things is when you're given like an expectation or like a customer account, and like it's almost like you were given they were given a promise that you can't really follow through with, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, and that can happen like with
sales or product, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like that's
Hey,
one
Julie,
of the things
listen,
too. You read. Go ahead.
Sorry. You paused and I'm delayed. No, I'm apparently delayed. So I thought there was a moment I could ask you a question, and then it appeared that I was cutting you off. So I apologize.
Well, we've already cut her off, so let's ask the question.
The
Okay, fine.
way that this podcast works is that like you need to pounce if there's a millisecond of free time of dead time.
That's what I was doing. I was pouncing, Josh. I was pouncing. Yeah. No dead air. So Julie, listen, I have to imagine that working with kids is super rewarding because you can feel a direct impact, right? Like a child changes a behavior as a result of something that you've helped guide them through, or they learn something new because of you. I've never been a teacher, not of young children. I taught at college, and that's very different. They don't care, and my impact is different. But working with small children has got to be super rewarding and impactful. Do you feel like you're having the same level of impact in this role? Does it fill that box for you the way working with children had?
I don't think you can feel it as much sometimes. And that's a good point, because one thing, it's like, communication through the internet is just a little strange sometimes. Like you can't always get the feeling, the energy, you don't know. But yeah, I think you can get in like kind of like a negative state sometimes if you're looking for like rewards in terms of like, oh, adoption, or you helped out, you did a training, and then maybe their adoption wasn't high after. You're like, oh, what did I do wrong? Yeah, I think that's the hard part about tech. I think sometimes too, customer success, you can be doing all these things and then nothing's working, or like you just feel like you're kind of on an island and you're solo trying to fix things, and yeah, nothing's working, and it just feels like, dang, how do I move the needle here? Like, how do I get some sort of win?
Yeah. I also think it probably this is probably one of those major differences too, right? When you're in education, you've got 20 kids or how many kids are in the room, and you can actually like see like the input and the outputs, right? It's like I'm doing these things differently, and we don't have that in CS, right? And I feel like the feedback, not even just like, this is something that I struggle with. If I don't get feedback, like I don't need somebody to praise me or give me all of these accolades, but I do need somebody to tell me like if we're moving in the right direction, right? Just like that kind of that feedback response, right? Of just not just customers, but also like my leadership and my boss. And if I'm not getting that, I kind of feel like I'm helpless. And I wonder if maybe, 6 or 7 years of that in the classroom maybe led into this model where that doesn't exist. Rarely ever. You have a weekly one-on-one with your boss and it's like, okay, good job. Like what, but I don't know how to weight these decisions and weight these things. You and I talk a lot about data and analytics and how to get data. And if we don't have data, then it really is like kind of going back to what I said before about this being weird, is like, we're just kind of sending emails, right? We're just kind of like throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. Like, how do you, how's been the mental state there for going from something that has like a good amount of feedback from parents and educators and all the folks that you have in the education system into a system that actually doesn't have much support at all?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I want to touch on like when you said if you're in a room of kids, right, you can like feel, or you can like get a sense of like who's paying attention or not. Like I think because I do trainings, one thing is like, how do you engage people? And it's like so challenging to get a sense of like who's paying attention or not. And I'm like, this training's so important. It's like, we need you to like focus on this because like this is going to help with adoption. And it's like, you can't really get a sense, like I can get, it's like, it's a different skill set, right? Like you have to engage people on the computer, but half the people are eating lunch or they're like looking at their phone or whatnot. And so it's just one piece to adhere to adoption. So that's one challenging thing I would say. You also said feedback. So I would get feedback from parents, right? And it would be like at the end of the year, or like I would get this super challenging kid, and then I like made a huge impact, and then parents would send me, oh, he signed up for wrestling and like he was never like doing anything positive. And it's like, okay, that's amazing, right? Like I had an impact on that kid's life. But I also think when you have such challenging kids and you only work with them for a year, you almost feel like you're a little bit helpless too, because they need 8 years of help, right? Like more than that, like, and you're only going to be with them for a year. So I think that's similar things with tech. But one of the things I will say is in terms of like feedback, I'm a feedback person. Like I like feedback. I want feedback. I want to continuously learn. If I'm not continuously learning, like it's just, I that's not good for me. Like I'm just a grinder, right? Like I like to work out, like I like to get better. Like, and so if I'm not doing that in my head, like it's just, I struggle a bit. But I think one thing is giving feedback strategically in a really good way is a skill that is like really high level. And I think I don't know, like a lot of leaders, I don't know if they have it or like, it's just something to build, right? Like it's something that a lot of leaders need to improve on. Like you have to understand the person that you're working with, motivation. Like, I don't know. I think that was in education. Like I didn't get that. I also think that feedback in tech can improve too. Like, I don't know. It depends. Like, how do you run your one-on-ones? Like, is it more like a coaching call around like, your calls that you have, or like, how you're running certain parts of your journey or whatever. But yeah, I think I always want more feedback, and I always want like coaching feedback, right? Like I want strategic help. Like I want to know how to improve myself strategically. How can I think outside of the box versus like more granular feedback, I guess.
I love that. That's good.
I'd love to, if it's okay, shift gears and we got your bio up front a little bit, Julie, but I'd love to learn about your day to day at Dooly, right? Kind of lend some context for folks that are listening to you. Tell us a little bit about, well, first, for those that don't know, perhaps you can introduce Dooly and tell us a little bit about how you guys segment, what your operating process is, how you engage with customers, given that the nature of your product is engaging with customers.
Yeah, for sure. We're a sales productivity tool, so we help AEs update Salesforce faster, also get more information transferred across teams as well when they take notes for their meetings, and also just updating fields in Salesforce. So, but in terms of what I do day to day, I do all of the onboarding and implementation for a new account. I also manage like the journey for my other accounts that I have, and then I am also running renewals. I also I did support more a little bit earlier on, now not as much at all, but depending on, we're just such a small team, like I'll be doing some support as well. So that's the one of the things, like I was actually thinking about this week and like just really thinking about prioritizing and like where I spend my time, because I'm doing a lot, and it's like where are my efforts most beneficial at this time.
That's really interesting, because everybody in the CS world is going through the same, everybody in the world is going through the same exercise. So like, let's get therapeutic. What's going on here? Like what's triggering for you right now to think about that? Like why? There's some kind of friction or pain there, right? And then like, what are the different priorities that you're balancing, and where's your head at as far as balancing them?
I think when you have all these big buckets that you have to focus on.
Like what? I want specifics. You don't have to reveal any PII, but like, like people want to hear like the real stuff in a podcast, right? So like as specific as possible.
Yeah, like when you're managing like 10 renewals, but then you're also having to onboard a new account, like your time is spent, like those are two big chunks of time. And if you trying to two big buckets of things, I guess I'll just call them. If I really want to like run the renewals right, like that takes a lot of strategic efforts and time. If I want to do the implementation really well and onboarding, like I have to do that. And it's like, that's quick. That's like lots of calls. And I want to make sure that the customer is set up for success. Like you kind of feel like, oh, well, how do I spend my time here? Something's got to give. Then I feel like, maybe I'm not doing my job well enough. Things like that. That's frustrating.
What usually falls through, and this isn't this isn't like a let's
your boss is also listening. Undercover boss.
That's your boss. Yeah. And by the way, John, I know you want more feedback. I am happy to oblige. I've actually thought about a segment of like feedback for John at the end of every episode.
Just bring somebody on.
Yeah. But no, but I'm asking like what generally falls through the cracks, or, is like the hardest to solve for, because again, like everybody else is going through similar stuff out there right now.
Yeah, I think when a new account comes on, like that's my main focus, right? Like I have to onboard and implement, and so that's where a lot of my focus gets put. But I also think like the customers that are like, let's say they're a yearly subscription, they're at like the 6-month mark, and like I'm essentially like, I would love to see like, oh, they could add this other feature that they're not utilizing but would help them, or like looking at the data more and being able to just, you know, increase the health of the customer. Like I'm unable to do as much of that as I'd like because of all the other like things that I'm spending my time on.
Like support issues or prepping for renewals.
Well, yeah, and like that product stuff will come up all the time. And like if you have to dive into what's the issue, fires, you know, those happen all the time. That can be like completely derailing off your schedule and spend so much time. So yeah, that always happens. Also, if you're like sending looms and like how to help a customer, you know, navigate something, that all takes time. Customer content too. Like I'd love to do more of that as well. Like instead of a call, let's just send a resource that I create tailored to the customer's needs versus like, you know, having to walk them through on a call. I'd love to do more of that type of stuff and think strategically on how to like just help customers overall and bucketing them, which I just haven't had enough time.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's good. Those are good answers. So, okay, you've been in tech or SaaS, I should say, for a year and a half. You're learning how we do and sometimes don't work with all the other departments. When you're looking at, you know, the next 2-3 years, 10 years, you know, you spend a lot of time in education, spend a lot of time kind of building out a potential career. And this is a big pivot. Like, talk to me about where you maybe want to go, what you want to see. Is it CS? Is it something else? Is it kind of open to interpretation? I'd love to kind of hear what your vision is for what you've learned, what you don't like, and what you do like, and maybe what's kind of giving you direction and purpose into moving forward.
That's a great question. I think I ponder that every day.
Yeah.
I also want to, like, Kristi's so quiet. It's like freaking me out. You haven't said much,
I'm
Kristi.
trying to be better about not talking over our guests. So I'm trying to allow you space, and I'm saving my question. I have like a final question that I thought would be beautiful to wrap up with. So when I felt like it was appropriate to ask my last question, I felt like I would step in and wrap us up strong with a really good question that you could answer for us.
Well, we have 5 minutes, so if we want to do that,
is it time for my question?
We can do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just by the way, the funniest part here is that Kristi was not like being silent because she wanted to give you more space or blah, blah, blah.
She was waiting to
talk. She wanted
to
save the best for last.
Oh, okay, good.
My question isn't even the best. But Julie, here's what I got for you. Is that the best question? It's a question, and I think it's a good question to end on. But listen, I feel like we talk to people every day who are like dying to break into tech, dying to break into customer success. And so you did it. You were successful. But you now also know what you didn't know before. What advice do you have for folks who are interested in breaking into customer success? Real advice, not even how to break in, but once they get there, what is the advice that you have for them? Because they're entering a world that they are not familiar with.
That's a great question.
Yes.
I think when you're networking, I think when you're networking to get a job, like ask the tough questions and be like, what's the good and the bad? You know, like what's the ugly and what's the good? I think to get more of a picture, I think you'll always lack some of that, right? And you'll have to get into the nitty gritty of it. I think if you're going to go into customer success and you enter a job, one thing I wish I would have known more about is just like get on sales calls, understand what the sales team is selling, what's our value, get to know the product super quick, and start just meeting people around the business and start learning about different parts of the business and how they just kind of start gauging, like, how do they think about customer success? Like, how are they making decisions around like developing the product, all these things. And I I think you can learn a ton just like watching a ton of calls too. But I think I would have done more of that. I wish I would have done more of that. I also think just diving in all the case studies too and really understanding like what those mean and how you're going to utilize that type of information in customer calls.
Julie, what's one question you would advise anybody who's interviewing to ask in the interview process? One question that you think that they should ask whomever is interviewing them so that they will be that much closer to reality.
Who's responsible for churn?
Ooh. Good one.
That's a good one. It's a really good one.
I think you told me that one.
Yeah.
John.
That sounds about right.
So that was my last question,
That's
Josh.
awesome.
I hope that was okay.
Well, okay. So Julie, if folks want to, learn more about you, where do they find you? What's the deal for follow-ups here?
You can just find me on LinkedIn, Julie Raeder.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Josh, take us home.
Thanks everybody for joining.
We have such like a big intro.
Usually he doesn't even give us that.
Thank you,
Usually
guys.
it's just like an end and then we all are offline and that's fun too.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you again next week.